Well, let's speak to Charles Samuel Shapiro, who's a former U.S. ambassador to Venezuela and currently professor of international relations at Georgia Tech, joining us from Atlanta, Georgia this hour. Thanks so much for your time. I suppose the first most basic question is, how does the U.S. actually enforce this when Trump announces that the airspace above Venezuela should be considered closed in its entirety? And is this something that he can do?
Good morning. Yes, it's something he can do. I don't know if it's legal under international law, but the president has the authority under U.S. law to do that. What it would mean is that, all civilian air traffic would shut down. It tells them not to go there. And then is he going to, he hasn't said no fly zone. If it's U.S. military uses no fly zone to mean, we will shoot down aircraft of, in this case, Venezuela, if they were to fly. And it's not clear to me, and obviously not clear to your reporters, if that's what he is implying by this statement.
Right. And as one of our reporters was mentioning, Rosalind Jordan, she was saying that at this hour, the Pentagon is deferring all questions about this to the White House. What do you make of that? And also, do you think this is all part of Trump's pressure campaign against Venezuela? Or is there going to be some sort of military action taken against the country?
Well, the answer to the second part of your question first. What this does is it turns up the dial, turns up the pressure on Maduro. And clearly what the government of the United States, President Trump, wants is for Maduro to leave office. And that would mean he'd have to leave the country. Lucia referred to a phone conversation that's supposed to have taken place last week. It's not just would Maduro leave, it's Maduro and how many of his close allies would have to leave. Would it be Maduro plus 5 or Maduro plus 50 or Maduro plus 500 people would have to leave the country? And if we're having conversations with them, I'm sure that's what we're discussing right now. This is part of the pressure campaign to get Maduro to leave. Let me remind your viewers that Maduro stole the election of July 2024 and didn't even bother to hide the steal. And what the President of the United States is doing is saying we support the candidate, who I think he's in Spain right now, Edmundo Gonzalez, who won the election. There's no question about Gonzalez having won the election. And so that's where we are right now. And it's Trump's increasing the pressure. Will it go to military action? I can't answer that. And I suspect that's why Southcom and Defense Department are referring all questions to the White House.
So is the U.S. government, this whole drug operation that's going on in the Caribbean and the Eastern Pacific, do you believe that it could be a cover-up? Because that's what some people are saying, right? This is a cover-up for the U.S.'s real aim,
absolutely,
which is deposing the Maduro government.
Oh, absolutely. It's a pretext. If you look at the U.S. government's own reports, public reports, drugs coming to the United States from Venezuela are minimal. Declaring these people to be narco-terrorists, it makes no sense. It doesn't have any meaning. Cocaine is not produced in Venezuela. It is Colombian cocaine that's transiting Venezuela. Most of it, according to DEA, is en route to Europe, not to the United States. Some of it does go to the United States, but fentanyl is not produced in Venezuela. Fentanyl is produced in Mexico. And yesterday, President Trump pardoned the former president of Honduras, who's in jail in the United States with a 45-year term, convicted by a jury of conspiring to transport 400 tons of cocaine to the United States. So if Trump cared about cocaine, why in the world is he pardoning a former president of Honduras who actually was convicted of doing just that? The whole drug trafficking thing is simply a pretext.
And Trump has been, as you've been saying, and our reporters have been saying, Trump has been increasing the pressure on the Maduro government over the past few months, while There is some reporting that seems to suggest that he was actually trying to have a face-to-face discussion with Nicolas Maduro. How do you square that circle?
That appears to be Donald Trump's way of operating. I mean, he sees himself as a negotiator. And he says that over and over again. And that's the way you work the deal, according to Trump, is you put pressure on people and you're open to people. That's what he's doing in Ukraine. That's what these wars that he claims to have settled. And that's what he's doing in Venezuela. I mean, he wants to get rid of Maduro. He wants to do it without putting U.S. forces on the ground. For domestic U.S. political reasons. I mean, Venezuela is a big country with a population of 30 million. It would require loads of troops if that's what we intended to do. And I don't think.
But he has sent troops to the region. He has sent troops and aircraft carriers to the region.
There's a difference between having ships in international waters off the coast of Venezuela and having military troops on the ground. Whenever you do that, troops are going to get killed, whether it's in action with the people of Venezuela somehow, or Venezuelan military, or it's accidents. When you insert troops, you do it at night. Helicopters, planes flying around at night, inserting troops, there will be accidents. Unfortunately, there will be accidents. You see that all the time. And that's what the America Firsters want, part of Trump's support, want to avoid, is having troops in Venezuela, troops in foreign countries at all.
As someone who knows Venezuela quite well, I mean, you are the former U.S. ambassador to Venezuela. Is Venezuela in a position to defend itself?
No.
What are you basing that on?
They've got some F-16. I've been there. Look, not defend itself to the extent of defeating the United States. I mean, sure, they can put up a defense. They've got surface-to-air missiles. That would actually be the first target if their armed shooting were to start. We would try to take out their surface-to-air missiles. They've got a couple of F-16s, old U.S. planes that they can fly that they don't have supply of spare parts for. As Lucia said, they've got Russian fighter jets. Again, I don't know how well they've been maintained and if they've got the parts they need and how many of them they can keep in the air. And, the numbers of planes on the aircraft carriers and planes that are stationed in Puerto Rico now, bombers that can fly directly from the United States, mainland the United States. I mean, it's in military terms, it's no match between a regional power with a decaying military and the largest military force in the world.
Okay, we will leave it there. Charles Samuel Shapiro, you're a former U.S. ambassador to Venezuela. Thanks so much for speaking to us from Atlanta, Georgia, this hour.
Don't miss out to get the full picture. Subscribe to Al Jazeera for reliable news and expert insight. Like, share, stay ahead.